So, the government's finally admitting it. UFOs are real.
You have to see this. These are the schematics for the craft. And the entities, they're not from this world. The government lied about everything.
After decades of denial, ridicule, and silence, the entire conversation is flipped on its head. We've got declassified reports, congressional hearings, and pilot testimonies all over the news. But what if this slow leak of information isn't the whole story? What if it's a carefully managed distraction from a truth that's far older and way more profound? The evidence isn't just buried in redacted government files. It's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, right in the pages of the Bible. Are we really talking about aliens, or are they something else entirely? For years, if you talked seriously about UFOs, you were dismissed as a crank. Now the dam is broken. The Pentagon even has a website where it's dumping previously classified files for the public to see. We're told it's a new era of transparency, and yet the official story is a mess of contradictions. On one hand, you have decorated military pilots and high-level officials describing encounters with objects that completely defy physics. Crafts pulling off impossible turns with no wings, no engines, nothing. On the other hand, official reports from offices like the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, come out and say, there's no verifiable evidence of anything extraterrestrial. So which is it? Are these things a revolutionary new technology, or are they nothing at all? This is where the official story starts to fall apart. Investigative journalists like George Knapp, who's been on this beat for decades, have uncovered a long history of government secrecy. Using Freedom of Information Act requests, Knapp helped prove that the government has known since at least the 1940s that these objects were real, evasive, and could outperform our best military jets, all while publicly denying it. But maybe the most telling clue comes from a short-lived controversial program funded by the Defense Intelligence Agency called AAWSAP. Between 2008 and 2010, this program wasn't just looking for nuts and bolts aircraft. It was collecting reports of what insiders call high strangeness, bizarre paranormal events that often happen around UFO sightings. We're talking about reports of weird creatures, poltergeist activity, and other strange side effects that witnesses experienced. Some former Pentagon officials have even admitted there's resistance to investigating these things inside the government.
This isn't just a UFO, General. It's a spiritual entity. We can't let the public know about the file.
They're already here. It's feeding off the fear.
Because some believe the phenomena are demonic in nature. This is where one of the most respected researchers in the field, Dr. Jacques Vallée, comes in. Vallée is an astrophysicist who actually helped build the database for AAWSAP. He argues that the whole aliens from another planet idea just doesn't fit the facts. He's documented thousands of cases and points out that the sheer number of sightings, the humanoid appearance of the beings, and their often bizarre and illogical behavior, just don't line up with a scientific expedition from another world. Instead, he offers what he calls a multi-dimensional hypothesis. He suggests we're dealing with a control system, an intelligence that isn't from another planet, but from another dimension, coexisting with us and manipulating our reality. It's a phenomenon that seems to be shaping our beliefs and our culture, and has been for all of recorded history. So, if they aren't just biological beings in spaceships, what are they? If we follow Vallée's breadcrumbs back through history, we find shocking parallels in the one place our modern secular world has been trained to ignore: the Bible. Let's start with the prophet Ezekiel. In the very first chapter of his book, he describes an incredible vision. He sees a whirlwind coming from the sky, and inside it, a fiery, glowing craft. He talks about wheels within wheels, covered in eyes that can move in any direction without turning. He sees living creatures with wings and multiple faces, moving with the craft as fast as lightning. For centuries, this was just seen as a spiritual metaphor. But does any of that sound familiar? A fiery, multi-directional craft that moves at impossible speeds, connected to strange, non-human beings. People are capturing videos of bizarre gyroscopic objects in the sky today, drawing a straight line right back to what Ezekiel saw. And it's not a one-off. The Bible is filled with strange things in the sky. In 2 Kings, the prophet Elijah isn't said to have died. He's taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire and a whirlwind. Abraham is visited by 3 beings who look like men but have divine knowledge. Jacob dreams of a ladder to heaven with angels going up and down. To us, these stories might sound like mythology. But what if they were ancient people trying their best to describe real, technological, and paranormal events using the only words and ideas they had? What if they were describing encounters with interdimensional beings? This brings us to one of the most fascinating and controversial texts ever left out of the modern Bible, the Book of Enoch. This book was considered scripture by many early Christians, and it's even quoted in the New Testament. It predates Jesus, was well known in his time, and its story is absolutely chilling when you look at it through a modern lens. The book tells the story of a group of angels called the Watchers, led by an angel named Semjaza. 200 of them descended on Mount Hermon. They were supposed to be observing humanity, but they broke their orders. They lusted after human women, took them as wives, and created a hybrid race called the Nephilim, who were described in Genesis as the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. But they did more than that. According to Enoch, these fallen angels taught humanity forbidden knowledge, how to make weapons of war, astrology, enchantments, even cosmetics, and the art of deception. They basically gave humanity technology and information it wasn't ready for, which led to such a massive corruption of the planet that God ultimately had to flood the earth to start over. Now, stop and think about the parallels. A group of non-human beings descends from the sky. They interact with humanity. They create hybrid offspring. They transfer knowledge and technology. How different is that from the modern alien abduction story? Many abductees report being used in genetic experiments for some kind of hybrid breeding program. Others report being given complex information, prophecies, or warnings about the future. This ancient account sounds less like a myth and more like a detailed report on interdimensional interference. It gives us a framework that perfectly explains the high strangeness that programs like AAW-SAP stumbled upon, and that the simple alien hypothesis just can't. Psychological manipulation, paranormal events, the focus on genetics. It all makes perfect sense if you're dealing not with scientists from another planet, but with spiritual entities who have their own agenda. This theory isn't just on the fringes anymore. Prominent figures are openly speculating along these lines. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance stated publicly that when he hears about celestial beings, he thinks of them not as aliens, but as demons. In one interview, he said, "I think that one of the devil's great tricks is to convince people he never existed. Former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has also suggested that UFOs could be fallen angels. These aren't just fringe commentators. These are people in positions of power who are starting to connect the dots in a way that lines up with this ancient biblical worldview. This all leads to the most critical question. If this is the truth, why is the extraterrestrial narrative being pushed? Why frame it as, are we alone? When the real question might be, who are we with? Many in the theological and research communities believe we are being set up for what's called the Great Deception. The theory goes like this. The final disclosure won't be a total lie, but a catastrophic, partial truth. The powers that be will finally admit that a non-human intelligence has been interacting with Earth for thousands of years. They'll show us the evidence, crashed craft, maybe even bodies. But they will frame it all as extraterrestrial. They'll tell us these are our creators, our ancient ancestors, our benevolent space brothers, who are here to guide us into a new age of peace and enlightenment. It would be a new global religion, tailor-made for a scientific age. A story of salvation from the stars, not from a divine creator. This narrative war is already happening. Pastors and commentators are warning that UFO disclosure is being sold as a scientific mystery to psychologically prime the public to accept these beings as aliens, not as the spiritual entities the Bible warned us about. If beings showed up with advanced technology, offering to solve all our problems, war, hunger, disease, how many people would actually question their motives? How many would just embrace them as saviors? The Book of Revelation foretells a time of powerful signs and wonders that will deceive the entire world. Could this be how it starts? The government's slow drip disclosure is forcing all of us to rethink our place in the universe. But the story they're building is dangerously incomplete. When you look past the sanitized reports and consider the high strangeness, the paranormal side effects, and the testimony of history, the extraterrestrial model just doesn't hold up. The phenomena don't act like visitors from another star. They act like tricksters, like puppeteers, like the fallen beings described in our most ancient texts. The question isn't just, are we alone? The real question is, who are we not alone with? As the veil gets thinner, we're being offered a convenient story about benevolent star brothers. But the oldest stories warn of a very different reality. A reality of spiritual conflict, where the most dangerous lies are the ones that are mixed with a little bit of truth. If you want to keep exploring these ideas and learn to spot the truth in a world full of deception, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think these are aliens, angels, demons, or something else? What is the truth behind the UFO phenomenon?